Sukhothai in Thailand is one of the country's most fascinating and ancient attractions. Like the city of Ayutthaya, Old Sukhothai was one of Thailand's most important metropolitan hubs during ancient eras. Located in a beautiful setting of lawns, lakes and trees in north-central Thailand, Old Sukhothai, meaning the dawn of happiness, was the capital of the Sukhothai Kingdom, beginning in 1238. The park covers about 70 square kilometers and is divided into 5 zones. The greatest temple in the central zone is without doubt Wat Mahatat, the spiritual focus of the city and the kingdom. Protected by a square moat, the central zone contains 21 temples, interspersed among lotus-covered pools, canals, trees, and other greenery. Beginning in the 12th century, people from Yunnan in China settled in the northern regions of the Khmer state. Known as the Thai, meaning free men, they organized themselves in small communities. A Thai prince married a Khmer woman, then revolted against the central power and created the first Siamese state, calling it the Kingdom of Sukhothai, after the name of its capital city. Ramkhamhaeng, or Rama the Strong, second son of the founder of the state, was one of the most important Thai sovereigns, for he brought extensive territory to his state through his military victories. The great civilization which evolved in the Kingdom of Sukhothai was a tributary of numerous influences and ancient local traditions, but the rapid assimilation of all these elements forged in record time what's known as the Sukhothai style. The great meeting rooms with the massive chevet, decorated with a monumental portrait of Buddha, are specific to Sukhothai architecture, and subsequently influenced all Thai art. Among the statuary, the first Thai style is distinguished by the particular physical features of the Buddhas. As a distinct style, Thai Buddhist architecture developed rather late. The religion was established in the region well before 1000 AD, but it wasn't until the 13th century, with the emergence of the Sukhothai Kingdom, formed following the migrations of Thai peoples from China, that a characteristic Thai artistic model emerged. Thai style appeared similar to the Indian and Sri Lankan styles, the latter admired throughout most of Southeast Asia as a purer form of Buddhism, and reflecting Khmer architecture, a direct result of Cambodian hegemony in the region. Wood was thought to have originally been the favoured material, as it was amongst the earliest Buddhist monuments elsewhere, but the passage of time saw buildings of such a fugitive material replaced by more permanent methods. What often remains are the brick podiums which once supported the wooden buildings. The main chedai of Wat Mahatat joins the Vihan Luang or Grand Hall. Sri Lankan influence is especially evident in the tall bell-shaped stupas called Thai chedai that came to be the dominant element by the 15th century, though ruins indicate the form had a long history in the region. As the capital moved from Sukhothai and on to Ayutthaya and finally to Bangkok, the buildings increased in richness and decorative elements, due in part to increasing Chinese influence. As with much of the architecture in Southeast Asia, the Indian belief in the cosmological role of Meru, the sacred mountain, was a central theme. Thus the temple is the center of the universe. The elements of the complex are oriented to the cardinal directions, and the central stupa dominates the compound, the latter being the most notable and expressive aspect of Thai architecture. The well-known tall stupa with its lotus bud spire is a particular contribution of Sukhothai builders. These soaring stupas dominate a temple complex, and the form is repeated on corners of the square base that supports the main spire. The central chedai was built in 1345 to house 2 relics of the Buddha brought from Sri Lanka by the monk Sisatta. The Sukhothai builders, though influenced by Khmer techniques and decorative choices, also retained elements of the earlier Dharavati period, especially in the use of brick construction and the numerous stucco niches with their terracotta figures. Certain canonical postures are particularly characteristic of the Sukhothai Buddha's upright impassive figure, his right hand raised as a token of the suppression of fear. The Buddha is seated in the half-lotus position, in the attitude expressing the calling of the earth to witness or the victory over illusion. Surrounded by 8 smaller spires, it stands on a square platform decorated with stucco reliefs of 111 monks in prayer. The statuary, however, is there, an abundant, impressive testimony to the genius of its sculptors, who were past masters in all the forms of sacred imagery employed at the time, and their masterpieces include several effigies of Indian culture. But nothing is more characteristic in the art of Sukhothai than the innumerable Buddha figures, cast in bronze or moulded in stucco on a laterite core, which for more than 2 centuries were both an internal and external feature of every temple and monastery. There are many small chedais present all around the temple. A chedai is a conical-shaped Buddhist monument used to inter sacred Buddhist objects. The original Sukhothai chedai has 3 superimposed rectangular pedestals supporting a small central part on the top of which is a finial in the form of a lotus bud. During the Sukhothai period, the Buddha images were in 4 postures: seated, reclining, standing, and walking. Here, the Abhaya Mudra gesture means imparting fearlessness. It's made with the hand raised and the palm facing outwards, fingers extended pointing upward. The wrist is bent at a right angle with the forearm. The gesture is sometimes made with both hands. During his lifetime, the Buddha was never depicted in real life, in either paintings or graven images. In fact, for several centuries after his death, if he was depicted in a painting or sculpture, it was by a symbol such as a wheel, representing the doctrine of Buddhism, a tree, representing the Bodhi tree under which he attained enlightenment, a footprint or a stupa. This reluctance to depict a true-to-life representation of the Buddha and the sophisticated utilization of non-iconic symbols even in scenes where there'd be other human figures, was probably influenced by some of the Buddha's sayings, which disapproved of the creation of pictures of the Buddha after he'd passed away. The numerous amounts of chedais found in the historical park can be roughly categorized into 3 different styles. The first style is of an authentic Sukhothai style known as the lotus bud-shaped chedai, while the other 2 styles were influenced by foreign kingdoms, Khmer and Lanka. Before the establishment of Sukhothai, the area was influenced by Khmer art and culture, whose evidence is seen in many Hindu temples, which were transformed into Buddhist temples during the Sukhothai period, but with the Khmer architectural style of the main stupa called pranga, remaining unchanged. Another style of chedai is found in Sukhothai. This is the bell-shaped chedai influenced by Lankan art, and which later became the general style of Buddhist chedai throughout the kingdom. It's difficult to ascertain when exactly the first human images of the Buddha were created, but scholars generally agree that it wasn't until about 500 years after his death that these appeared. These earliest images that have been identified are dated to a period just before the beginning of the Christian era and were found to originate from two main centres, Gandhara in what is today Pakistan's northwest frontier province and the region of Mathura in what's now north-central India. Reflecting the association between the Buddha and trees, groves and forests, Buddhists hold them in reverence, particularly ancient trees. The Buddha advocates meditating in a forest or at the base of a tree. The relevance of the Buddha's life and teaching to nature is clear in at least a few aspects. Major events in his life were associated with trees. He also often drew on parables about animals and other aspects of nature to illustrate moral and other principles. During his lifetime, it also appears that population and economic pressures were leading to deforestation and resource depletion in some areas. If nature was so relevant to the Buddha, then surely nature is relevant to Buddhism. Wat Si Sawai is located 350 metres away, south of Wat Mahatat, within the historic importance of the boundary wall. It's impressive, not for its size, but for the distinctiveness of its Lopburi-style architecture. The Crown Prince, King Rama VI, found a trace of Hindu sculpture, Sayampu, the greatest Hindu god in this sanctuary. In his opinion, this ruin was once a Hindu shrine, but was later converted into a Buddhist monastery. Another important ancient monument in the temple includes 3 Khmer-style corn-shaped stupas. In the 9th and 10th centuries, the Khmer kingdom, which took over the area now corresponding to Cambodia in the first half of the 9th century, pushed into Vietnam, Laos and China and northeast Thailand. Their culture was Hindu, although the Khmer leaders converted to Mahayana Buddhism in the late 12th century. The most notable architectural style is the prang, the tower shaped like a cob of corn. It's distinguished by groups of buildings on terraced platforms, integrated by connecting corridors, the facades adorned with panels of divine figures. A low wall surrounds 3 towers. There are 3 massive Lopburi-style corn-shaped prangs, intricately decorated with stucco images of Garuda, Naga and other beings in Hindu mythology. This structure indicates the Khmer-dominated style. The great civilization that evolved in the Sukhothai era gave rise to unique artistic, architectural, cultural and administrative styles. Pagodas, stone inscriptions, Buddha images, potteries and artifacts uncovered in Sukhothai and associated historic towns reflect the height of craftsmanship and creativity. Historians have long been studying the history of Sukhothai, but it was only in the 1970s that the Sukhothai, Si Sachanalai and Kampeng Pet ruins were declared historical parks. Located close to the northern gate and outer ramparts of Sukhothai, Wat Pra Phai Luang is considered a group of ancient edifices of great significance because its buildings, constructed in different phases, have left impressive evidence of the evolution of Sukhothai art and architecture. The large Wat Pra Phai Luang temple is surrounded by a moat. As the present city walls date from the 13th century, it's thought that this Wat was the centre of the original city before the town centre was moved south. This group of ancient monuments was built in the middle of an area which was enclosed with a 600-metre-long moat on each side. Thus the temple was originally built by the Khmers and has both Hindu and Buddhist elements. Like most Buddhist temples, the buildings are aligned on an east-west axis, with the major images facing east. When the Khmer temple was converted into a Thai Buddhist Wat, several structures were built east of the prangs. A vihan, a chedai with seated Buddha reliefs, a reclining Buddha, and a mondop with 4 large standing Buddhas. It's thought that this area was the centre of the Khmer city, and Wat Pra Phai Luang played a similar role to Wat Mahatat in the Thai kingdom. There were originally 3 prangs, but only one is still intact. A bit of imagination is necessary to see the splendour that was Sukhothai from the foreshortened towers, the broken walls of reddish-brown brick, the bell-shaped stupas, and the massive bases on which Buddha statues once stood. But the temple sites have been cleared, giving a notion of the expanse of each temple complex and the confines of the capital city. The remaining prang is adorned with stucco reliefs depicting the story of Buddha, like those at Palilai Prasad in Angkor, the capital of the ancient Khmer kingdom. These stucco reliefs help to confirm the supposition that around the 13th century AD, communities in Sukhothai had cultural contact with the Khmer in the reign of Jayavarman VII, and were also associated with Lavo, a Khmer town of importance in the Central Plain. The sculpture of the Sukhothai period presents the real glory of this school of art. It's generally held that classical Thai sculpture reached its peak during this period. Wat Si Chum is one of the visual, architectural, historical and ideological frameworks of Sukhothai history of arts. Situated outside the town wall in the northwest corner, this ancient monument contains a huge seated Buddha inside a tall and narrow mondop or shrine, enclosing only one major statue. 6 structures of the complex survive: the main mondop, the large congregational hall called Vihan, the small mondop, the small Vihan, and 2 chedais. The mondop, the largest structure in the complex, is 32 metres square, 15 metres high, and the walls are 3 metres thick. One of the most historically important Buddhist places in Thai history, Wat Si Chum is also one of the most fascinating tourist sites. It was built in the late 13th or 14th century of the Sukhothai period. This Thailand Buddha is called Pra Achana. Located in a square mondop, the face of the statue is visible from the front. The Pra Achana Buddha image is a perfect example of Sukhothai Buddhist art and is exceptionally beautiful. Like many of the Thailand Buddha statues in Sukhothai, the Praratchana is in the subduing Mara, or overcoming evil position. The Praratchana was constructed with bricks and laterite blocks, which were covered in plaster, and stands 15 meters high and over 11 meters wide. Draped over one leg is the Buddha's giant right hand, with elegantly tapered fingers and gold nail polish. The Sukhothai Buddha images have a particularly undulating and soaring character. The human forms, simplified and idealized, are exquisitely modeled, and there's no disharmony between the abstract idea and its material realization. The conception of the Sukhothai school of sculpture represents the image of the Buddha after his enlightenment. The body of the Buddha is in complete rest, the muscles are relaxed, and the face is serene with a faint smile reflecting a state of deep inward contentment. The Langkha Vong Hinayana sect of Buddhism constitutes the main source of Buddhist monuments in the Sukhothai period. There's a long series of constructions of Buddhist religious building with their perfect style, which became the prototype of later monuments in Thai art. The representation of the Buddha's image is a complex problem, and mere techniques and artistic qualities aren't sufficient because it's the essence of the Buddhist doctrine that the sculptural forms must convey, the true expression. Thus, in conceiving the Buddha's image, Thai artists sought to portray, through the use of human forms, a being who was removed from earthly affairs. The sculptors of Sukhothai did solve this dilemma. Their creations seemed to master the tumult of human passions, and the faint smiles of the images tell us of happiness and peace, gained by subduing the earthly and primordial instincts. The protection of the area was first announced in the Royal Gazette in 1962. In 1976, the restoration project was approved, and the park was officially opened in 1988. Buddhist religion may make a subtle cultural imprint on the landscape through recognition of sacred places and spaces not otherwise built or marked. Grottos, lakes, single trees, groves, or special hills are examples that are unique to specific religions and express the reciprocal influences of religion and environment. Wat Sorasak is located northeast of Ta Phra Deng Shrine and was built in approximately 1417. The stupa is the main attraction and consists of a bell-shaped monument covered with stucco and mounted on a 19-meter square brick base, which itself is decorated with 24 elephant sculptures made of bricks with stucco, which serve as the motifs typical of the Sri Lankan style introduced in Sukhothai at this time. The precious elephant is a symbol of the strength of the mind in Buddhism. Exhibiting noble gentleness, the precious elephant serves as a symbol of the calm majesty possessed by one who's on the path. Specifically, it embodies the boundless powers of the Buddha, which are miraculous aspiration, effort, intention, and analysis. The image says it all: a stupa, symbolic of the mind of a Buddha, with a basis of strong elephants. The concept of elephants guarding the Chedai is based on a belief that the elephant, regarded as a beast of burden for the emperor, is a suitable animal to firmly uphold Buddhism throughout the period of 5,000 years. Wat Sorasak was restored in the 1980s, so some parts of the stucco have been replaced. Other remarkable temples within the city walls are Wat Pra Phai Luang, with a well-preserved tower sanctuary and standing Buddha figures of stucco, picturesquely situated on a pond. It's a good example of more rounded temple architecture in the earlier Sri Lankan style. Situated to the west of Wat Mahathat, the temple has a square pedestal and a main sanctuary. There's a vihan in front, and in the east of the pond there's an island with an ubosot. This edifice has already crumbled, and only its pedestal and laterite columns still remain. Many monuments and magnificent scenery are visible from this location. Sukhothai is generally recognized as a place of historical significance. The ancient cities of Ayutthaya and Sukhothai, former capitals of the Thai kings who held sway during the 13th and 14th centuries, are well worth a visit. They bear testimony to the ancient glory of the Thai nation and eloquently demonstrate the skills and heritage of the Siamese people